Hotel Lima Alpha.
Ever since I was a little girl, I loved going to the theater. It didn't matter to me if it was to see a movie, a play, or some other performance. There was some kind of magical and eerie quality about the small venues my father took me to that always flooded my tiny black heart with glee. Even now as an adult, I find myself filled with awe and childlike wonder when standing in the lobby of an opera house or even a tiny one-screen theater, all while my partner is trying to indulge me, but also trying to keep me from blocking traffic. My name is Alice, and I'm glad you could join me. Today, let's talk about just a few venues that may not be keeping their ghost lights on. The Leaf Theater, Quincy, Florida. At one point, Quincy was one of the wealthiest cities in Florida. While the community was mostly built around agriculture, they had the most success with shade tobacco. The demand for the hybridized tobacco developed there and led to a boom in the economy and a growing local population. In 1949, the Leaf Theater was built and named for the area's big money crop. It was a marvel for its time. The movie house included luxuries of air conditioning and a cry room, which were nearly unheard of outside of big cities. The grand opening was hosted by Roy Rogers. The Leaf closed its doors in 1980, unable to compete with multiplexes that were popping up all over Florida. In 1983, the building was purchased and donated to the Quincy Music Theater Group, who, with the help of a preservation grant, local residents, and generous donors, restored the building. It was reopened and hosts musical theater, educational workshops, and other events. During and after the restoration, strange things started happening at the Leaf. General feelings of unease and of being watched have been reported by guests and staff. Sightings of a man in a hat, a lady ghost, and a man in khaki pants have been reported. Some believe that some of this activity may be spirits of former projectionists, while others believe it may be something more ominous. The Baghdad Theater, Portland, Oregon. Portland is a special place. It's been reportedly the most haunted city in America by a few sources who decide these things. It was a bustling port city, complete with a dangerous nightlife, shady characters, and the infamous Shanghai tunnels. Almost every part of Portland has its own bit of mysterious or terrifying history. I could easily do several videos on Portland alone, but let's just start with a couple of places. The Baghdad Theater was opened in 1927 by Universal Studios, and they went all in on the Middle Eastern theme in an effort to compete with other movie houses in the area that had gone with Mayan, Egyptian, and Moorish themes. The Baghdad hosted silent films, talkies, vaudeville, stage shows, orchestras, and famous musicians. In 1991, the McMenamin brothers acquired the theater and renovated, and then further renovated in 2013. And the Baghdad is still in operation today. Staff at the Baghdad report feelings of being watched, especially in the kitchen and the ladies' room. Locals say the ghost of a stagehand who met his end backstage can be heard whispering behind the screen and occasionally crossing in front of it. The Roseland Theater in Portland, Oregon. The Roseland was built in 1922 in the Old Town Chinatown neighborhood of Portland. It was originally a church, but was converted into a nightclub called Starry Night in 1982 by the new owner, Larry Hurwitz. 9 years later, Hurwitz unalived his publicity agent, Timothy Moreau, sold the club, and moved to Vietnam. He ended up getting extradited back to the United States, faced the charges of tax evasion, and the publicity that shone new light on what happened to Timothy Moreau. Hurwitz pled no contests and went to prison. In a later civil suit, he was ordered to pay $3 million to the Moreau family. These days, Double T Promotions owns the Roseland. Staff and guests have reported seeing Timothy Moreau's ghost throughout the venue, particularly in the halls and backstage area. I've been there myself, and I certainly felt uneasy in the halls and on the stairs. The Orpheum Theater, Memphis, Tennessee. In 1890, the Grand Opera House was open and was said to be the classiest theater outside New York City. Vaudeville was the thing at the time, and that's what was mostly performed at the Grand. In 1907, it became part of the Orpheum Circuit and then became simply known as the Orpheum. The vaudeville shows continued until 1923, when a fire started during a show and the entire structure was burnt to the ground. In 1928, the new Orpheum opened on the site of the Grand Opera House. With its marble, gold leaf, and plush carpets, it was still a sight to behold. The architecture, the woodwork, and the gilding, the Wurlitzer organ, and the original fixtures alone make it worth a visit. As vaudeville waned, the Orpheum began showing movies, but by 1976, it was unable to compete with multiplexes and was sold. There was discussion of tearing it down, but luckily in 1977, the Memphis Development Foundation bought the theater and restoration began in 1982. Soon, Broadway productions and concerts would come to the Orpheum. More renovations would occur years later to keep up with the times and maintain the opulence that the Orpheum is known for. Staff and guests have reported strange activity in the theater. Uneasy feelings, feeling watched, and disembodied voices are common. Tales of the theater being haunted by the ghost of a girl named Mary, who was killed in a car accident in front of the theater, are widespread, though I wasn't able to find any concrete evidence of that event. Guests and staff say they've heard Mary giggling and running up and down the aisles, but some of them say they have seen her sitting in her favorite seat, C5, during a performance. In 1977, the traveling cast of Fiddler on the Roof were so affected by the little ghost girl that they conducted a seance to try and contact her. At some point later, a parapsychology class visited the theater and claimed that there were at least 6 more ghosts running around the theater with Mary. There are so many more stories from other theaters all over the world, maybe even some near you, dear listener. And if you'd like to hear more, or have your own tale about a venue you've been to, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. Until next time, my friends, check under your seat, make sure your ghost light is on, and good night, whatever you are.